Good morning and welcome to Breakfast Central. Thank you very much for joining us.
It is a new day here. Of course, for the next 2 hours, we have some of the biggest conversations happening here in Nigeria. And remember to join us via our social media platforms at News Central TV. Share with us your thoughts on any of the conversations that we're having. You can also call us in the second half of Breakfast Central while the conversations go on. We also have Dashin Usman joining us with Breakfast Headlines. Good morning, Dashin.
Olive, how are you this morning?
Good morning. And
fantastic, fantastic. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Yeah, I want us to, before we, of course, share what the top stories are, to, share our thoughts on something, that I saw yesterday. And that is the Minister of Aviation, of course, announcing the startup of a new security force, in the airport. He started it in the Lagos Airport at Murtala Mohammed International Airport. And, of course, mentioned that it was going to be spread across, the other international airports in the country. I'm hoping that we can get to show that tweet that he, of course, shared yesterday, announcing, of course, the emergence of this new security force. And, of course, I got to see a lot of reactions to it. Many Nigerians not very excited about the whole idea because, like someone said, to every hammer, every problem is a nail. And, that's basically what it looks like. I'm hoping, waiting for the producers to quickly share that tweet so that we can get our viewers to see it.
Okay,
but
well,
the point here is, he, of course, announced the emergence or the startup of a new security force. And according to him, it is to address the problem of touts at the international airports, to arrest the touts that normally, hang around the international airports. He also went on to talk about reduction in the case of bribery and begging and some of all those things, that happen at the airports, which, he expects that this security force, agency would eventually address. And for me, I feel like, I think I would probably start with saying that I feel like there's something going on in the country with our ministers. I do not know exactly what it is yet, but I sense that there's something going on. This is what I'm referring to. If you remember, the Minister of Solid Minerals, Dele Alake, when he, of course, was named minister, a couple of weeks later also announced the emergence of something called mine marshals. The mine marshals, and of course it was to secure Nigeria's solid minerals and whatnot. I did see something lately about Olubumi Tunji-Ojo also asking for a security force. I'm not sure how true it is, but it was something that I saw in the news, asking for his own security force, that will, of course, protect Nigeria's, electronic cables and whatnot across the country. And now we're seeing Festus Keyamo going ahead, of course, to launch the new security force across the airports, which, makes me question really what then is the use of the police and other security agencies that currently exist across Nigeria. Why does every ministry need to have its own security force?
And I completely agree with you. What exactly is the point of the actual forces that we already have? Also, where are you bringing these people from? I've seen questions being asked as to, are these security operatives not brought from amongst the people that you're trying to sort of instill discipline from? But that aside, I completely agree that it's not a good look for us to have touts and for us to have people begging. It's not a good look at the airports. But it's also, in a way, a reflection of the challenges that the Nigerians are facing. It's a reflection of the fact that these people are maybe underpaid, don't have enough money to be able to make ends meet, battling the scourge of inflation, right? And that is not to excuse bad behavior. I'm just trying to see things from different sides of the divide. Also, I think if you were to ask me as a Nigerian what my biggest concern with flying will be, it maybe wouldn't be about touts or people begging me at the airport because I have the right to say no, I have control over that. As a Nigerian, my primary concern would be that when I book a flight and the flight tells me it's leaving at 11 a.m., that I will get to the airport, I will check in and I will fly at 11 a.m. And if for any reason the flight was meant to have been shifted, I would have been duly informed. Not when I'm getting to the airport, they're telling me, oh, the flight left at 8 a.m. Did you not get an email? And if I have been treated poorly as a staff or as a Nigerian that is flying, that I will get due compensation. I think these are the things that Nigerians want to see, much more than people that are begging and all the other things that we have control over. Your flight's moving or you missing your flight because of some, some bribery and corruption or some incompetence behind the scene is not something that we have control over. Let's fix the ones that we don't have control over.
All right, well, I actually agree with Olive. That is actually, that should have actually been top priority, even though I remember sometime last year, the minister did say that there would be consequences for missed or cancelled flights, but I really don't see that happening, to some of these airlines. And I think, Osalge, the reason why most people are unhappy with the fact that they've been able to come up with an aviation police so fast is because, there are other challenges that need to be looked upon. Talking about, the insecurity in the northern region of the country and how a lot of people have been clamoring for state policing. Now we see how easy it is to, get the police, like a different police force, as soon as they want to. And that was why I think Olive asked, where did they bring them from? Is it from the existing federal police and all that? And then people are actually thinking about the fact that, you're yet to actually settle on minimum wage, but yet you're forming an airport police. But looking at it internationally in other climes, they all have, aviation police. But will there be a duplication of duty as well? Because we already have federal police stationed at these airports. We already have some security that are fan employees who are actually acting as security officials there, arresting touts and making sure that, everything is in order. And also, when you talk about bribery, who gives the bribery, who collects the bribery? Are they there to stop passengers from giving out bribes, or are they there to stop officials, especially those of the customs, who we actually know, in fact, most times they can even as much as stop you from actually, getting to your flight or getting to your destination, especially if it's international,
because
if you do not bribe them. So will they be responsible for, arresting and prosecuting those officials of the some immigration as well?
And the situation is really bad. I did see, some popular ex-user, Wanyocha, she's married to a Nigerian. I don't know her full name. But she made a video a couple of days ago complaining bitterly about the situation and what she deals with, flying through Nigeria, which was a very, very pathetic, situation she expressed. But here's the thing, like you mentioned, duplicity of agencies. We already have a situation where, of course, there's currently the Nigerian police force, that normally should have some of all these duties, and you don't need to have a new security agency entirely to address touts. The reason that there's touts in the airport, first of all, is the result of a different problem entirely, which is the high level of poverty in the country. It's not because touts just pick to hang around the airports as their, source of living. It's because of the increased level of poverty that exists across Nigeria. If you look across the streets, listen, drive across Lagos, anytime, any day, morning, night, the number of beggars that you see around Lagos today. We may need a security agency. Going by Festus Keyamo's narrative, we might need a security agency just to address that problem itself. Let's create a new security force, give them guns, because these guys at the airports have been given guns also. So let's create a new agency, give them guns also to address the number of beggars that we see hanging around Lagos. Yes.
So that's a bit concerning.
It's a major concern. And like I said, I feel like there is something going on that we are not being told yet, with these ministers looking for reasons with which they need to set up their own security forces or agencies, handling their ministry. And I'm not going to be surprised if we, maybe go as far as looking for a new force called Ninja Turtles or something for Nigeria's water
Power Rangers.
Or Power Rangers for
the electricity, to protect the national grid.
Ooh, that would be nice. That would be really nice. Or maybe, Rambo for our forests.
Well, I do have concerns about why they are armed, and that's a conversation for another day. But yes,
we already have a tribunal for that.
Sorry?
We're talking about protecting our power lines.
There's a bill for that. So I guess they are reading the bill. I believe that there's a bill being read to sort of protect the national grid. So maybe we'll call our lawmakers the Power Rangers, actually. But as an aside, I would say that I completely see the need to sanitize the airport. I see that we need to protect the integrity of the airport, because when you come into a country, the first impression of the country that you have is the airport. But let's begin by looking at things in order of priority. And right now, Nigerians want to be able to book their flights and get to the airport and know that the airlines are not overbooking and telling them, oh, sorry, the flight has gone because, they booked much more than they should have. And that when Nigerians are treated poorly at the airports, that they get due compensation. So I think in order of priority, let's start to focus on that. Later, we can talk about what the security agency is and why exactly they are armed.
Yeah.
Dashin, thank you for joining us. We'll see you shortly with the news, but let's share what our top stories are.
This morning, the presidency insists on new jets as debt profile soars.
And still looking at the news this morning, ASUU threatens fresh strike over old salary. It's been back and forth with the Academic Staff Union of Universities for years now.
Nigeria's insecurity is an inherited compromise, and that's from President Bola Tinubu.
And NLC absolved Kogi State over non-payment of salaries.
We'll also be sharing with you the newspaper front pages, the major stories making headlines across Nigeria today.
We begin breakfast headlines with news from Northwest Security, where President Bola Tinubu says the efforts of security forces in the fight against security in the Northwest are yielding results and have disrupted and dismantled criminal networks. The president said this at the Northwest Peace and Security Summit organized by the Northwest Governors Forum in Katsina, the capital of Katsina State, on Monday. Represented by the Vice President, Kashim Shettima, Tinubu assured Nigerians that the progress made so far is just the beginning, as the government is making more effort to provide a better, secure environment for all citizens. The Ogun State Governor, Dakwa Abiodun, has emerged as the chairman of the Southern Governors Forum, while the Governor of Anambra State, Chukwuma Soludo, will serve as his deputy. This was communicated by the chairman of the Southwest Governors Forum and the Governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, after the forum's meeting at the Presidential Lodge in Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital, on Monday. The Kano State High Court has adjourned the sitting in a case filed by the Kano State Government to restrain the 15th Emir Ado Bayero and 4 other Emirs from parading themselves as Emirs. Now, the motion on notice was filed by the plaintiffs on interlocutory injunction after the interim order was granted by the court, and the first defendant in the suit served the plaintiff with a counter affidavit which they were to respond to. The presiding judge, Justice Amina Adamu, listened to both counsels and adjourned the hearing of the suit till the 2nd of July 2024. A bit of health now. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention says the country has recorded 1,528 suspected cases of cholera and 53 deaths in 31 states across 107 local government areas. The Director General of the NCDC, Dr. Jide Idris, said this on Monday at a press briefing on the update on the cholera situation in the country. Idris also said the federal government has activated the National Emergency Operations Center for Cholera. The Nigerian Electricity Management Services Agency says that it has banned private transformer connections to its 33 kVA feeder lines. The managing director of the agency, while speaking to newsmen in Abuja, says that this forms part of new restrictions by the agency to tackle problems affecting transmission of electricity, usually caused by connections on the feeder lines. Senegal said Monday it had implemented voluntary COVID-19 screening tests and reimposed the wearing of masks as Dakar's international airport for returning pilgrims, fearing the virus was linked to the deaths of some Mecca pilgrims. Dakar suspects that a number of some 1,300 deaths, according to a Saudi tally, are down to a respiratory syndrome ailment such as COVID-19. And that's all on breakfast headlines. Now it's back to Osaoge and Olive.
Thank you very much, Dashin, for bringing us breakfast headlines. We want to see a finality to the case going on in Kano with the Emirs to ensure that there can actually be a peaceful resolution and people can move on. The citizens in Kano deserve to move on, and I'm hoping that, the voice of the people reflects the voice of the court.
Well, we'll see the end to that very, very soon, I believe.
All right. See you at 9 a.m., Dashin.
Thank you, Olive.
All right. Thank you for joining us. Remember that the conversations go on social media as well. News Central TV is the handle on X as well as on all social media platforms. We'll go on a break. When we come back, we'll be looking into more stories this morning. Welcome back. The Nigeria Labour Congress says that it has resolved its impasse with the Kogi State Government over the non-payment of workers' salaries. The president of the union made this known while hosting some officials of the state government at the Labour House in Abuja. News Central's Emmanuel Bagudu has more in this report.
These are special advisors of Kogi State Governor Usman Ododo. They say as former members of Nigerian Labour Congress, they however now belong to the other side of the divide. They are at the Labour House to provide updates on the welfare status of civil servants in Kogi State.
We were made to understand that the Federal Ministry of Finance has a position that Kogi State is not paying 30,000 naira minimum wage. I want to make it clear that Kogi State is paying 30,000 naira minimum wage in Kogi State, and it was being paid and implemented by the previous government. This is what some of us were frontier in fighting because of them when I was the chairman of Nigeria Labour Congress, and it was implemented. So not implementing is like taking like a glory out of me of an achievement I have fought for when I was the chairman of Nigeria Labour Congress in that state.
I think it falls on the Kogi State government, to equally clarify this with the Federal Ministry of Finance, which came up with that report, to say that this report, we are paying correctly, we are wrongly classified. I think then the position, not NLC. There must have been something they saw, or they may have made a mistake, which maybe the SA level has said that they are paying. Now you have two issues now. He has retracted that the Kogi State government is paying. So I think that settles the matter as at now. Our challenge with them has been that of non-payment of salaries, which I think has been corrected by the current governor.
The NLC president also updated the group on the current agitation for a new minimum wage in Nigeria.
It will be taken for him, and is expected of him to reach out to the tripartite people, not just labor, the employers, people representing government, to see whether they can build a synergy outside the negotiating table to come out with a figure that should be transmitted to the National Assembly. That's our position. Now, beyond that, there is not only just that figure. There are some issues that were discussed there, and since we have not received a copy of what is being transmitted to the president, that may be contentious.
He added that the organized labor will not relent in its quest to ensure Nigerian workers have a living wage. In Abuja for News Central, I am Emmanuel Bagudu.
Thanks to Emmanuel Bagudu for that report. Now, moving on, the Nigerian National Assembly, according to reports, was contemplating the allocation of funds for the purchase of 2 brand new aircraft for the presidency, following the revelation that the president's 19-year-old Boeing 737 and other planes in the fleet are dysfunctional. Now, despite a staggering 14.77 billion naira spent on repairs and maintenance over the past 11 months under President Bola Tinubu's administration, the issues persist. But just to be also mentioned, the Senate President in a quick address yesterday did mention that there's no clarity on plans to buy any aircrafts, for the record.
Now, this is also to mention that the plan has, since there is no clear plan, the rumors of the intended plan maybe or maybe not have to acquire new presidential aircraft has sparked widespread criticism among Nigerians. Many of them are concerned about the country's escalating debt crisis. As of March, the Debt Management Office put Nigeria's total public debt stock to 121.67 trillion naira, that is $91.46 billion, comprising 65.65 trillion naira, that is $46.29 billion, in domestic debt and 56.02 trillion naira in external debt. The proposed acquisition of presidential air fleet has raised questions about the government's priorities and fiscal responsibility. Joining us this morning is the Director, Contact and Engagement Lokia Idatua Campaign, Dr. Charles Marindotti. Good morning, Dr. Marindotti. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Oli. Good morning, Mr. Arge. Good
All
morning,
right.
Nigerians.
Morning.
Thanks
We've
for
seen
having me.
the reactions that this has sparked on social media. In a number of quarters, it's been outrage, even though we can't categorically say that there is a clear plan to purchase a presidential jet. But do you see the need for this? Should there be a clear plan? Do you see the need for this, and can you justify it?
Yeah, thanks for that. You're very right when you talk about the outrage. I mean, if you can think about 22-year-old Nigerian who has a 22-month-old child that she has not given full, meals in 2 days, you can understand if that person is clamoring when he or she hears that, Nigerian president is trying to spend this amount of billions of naira or millions of dollars to purchase a private jet. That would seem like a luxury. But when you look at it in the actual, fact of the matter, this is actually a very financially savvy move because, like you mentioned, in the last 1 year, we spent about, I think about $8 million or something like that. In the last 11 months, in the last 2 months, we spent about $15 million just to, repair this aircraft. So if you check the average fair market value of some of these planes in about 6 years, we would have started saving money. And that is just assuming that, this is the cost of the, maintenance, maintains its, this was got this rate and does not go up. And also, there's also an issue with all those aircraft. When you think about it, the first one that is 19-year-old was bought by President, Obasanjo in 2005. That was a 1998, year-old plane. I mean, 1998 model plane. It was made in 1998. That was when I was in GS1. In 2005, when President Obasanjo bought this, there was no iPhone. There was, so a lot of these technologies have, advanced, and so sometimes also finding mechanics to even fix these old, jets becomes difficult. That is because they all retire, and there's so that is why when I say it's not serviceable, because they won't find the skill. And also when you look at also the spare parts too, most people would have actually, retired those jets, so there will be no economic advantage for companies to keep on making spare parts. And the money that we keep spending on this repair, I could remember my first car in the United States was $6,000. I was told to pay $1,000 to fix something that was going to cost me $45. So the cost of repair in terms of service and labor is a lot. So by actually making this purchase, the presidency will be saving Nigerians a lot of money. And this is a jet. It is not like, a car that you can take home, like where that most politicians do, which I am against. And the president is also not John Travolta that would, drive his own private jet into his house. The next president is going to, continued usage of this vehicle. So I think this is economically savvy move on the face of it. And I also don't think that our national debt, and not like I don't think, actually by the facts, by the numbers, our national debt is actually not increasing. It has actually decreased, even though the naira amount seemed to have increased. And I think a reporter wrote, so Jerry did justice to that. If you look at it in terms of value.
All right, Dr. Marin,
in terms of value.
Just to be clear.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard this argument before, about, we are spending a lot of money fixing, repairing the jets, so we need to, would rather spend, a whole lot more money to buy a new one, instead of continuing to repair, which has been the popular argument from the APC spokespersons. But the challenge here is that, many people are saying that Nigeria can't even afford it. It's not like Nigeria has money stored somewhere that we're going to, take to buy a new jet. We're, maybe going to take a loan or pull money out of somewhere, to buy a jet. And if we have a president who understands that the country is currently bleeding and cannot afford these expenses, you saw the backlash that came from the president's or the vice president's 21 billion naira house that many people also said was completely, unnecessary to spend that amount of money. You've also seen the backlash that came from spending 90 billion naira, for Hajj or pilgrimage. The criticism is pretty much the same thing, that the president should be considerate of the fact that the country currently does not have, that level of, wealth to buy a new plane and make do with other options. The presidency has 6 planes. 3 of them are reportedly, very bad. There's 2 others, or rather there's 3 others. And so can't Mr. President at this point make adjustments to show the Nigerian people that he understands that the country is bleeding and can't afford to buy new airplanes just for the sake of it?
I will first start by saying that I cannot justify the Hajj spending because, your religious journey is a personal journey. You are not going to take Nigeria to Adjourns. You go by yourself. So why are you using Nigerian money to, go to Jerusalem or to Hajj? I think it's the height of profligacy. I am not a spokesperson for President Tinubu. He doesn't pay my bills. I am just talking in actual fact. So I cannot in any way, shape or form, justify this. When you talk about the vice president's house spending, constructions, if you don't complete them, they are decaying assets. Things go bad. So, and these are things that, the budget has been already budgeted prior to, this is part of the Abuja FCT, Federal Capital Budget, that they decided that they wanted to complete, pending assets, pending constructions that the prices have increased over time. So if you look at the budgeted amount when the project started, compare it to the amounts that they spent to complete it, they would have saved a whole lot more money, maybe even spent like 50 or 80% less if they have completed it in record time when they awarded those things. So this is essentially the idea in terms of completing projects, but that one is different. But when you talk about this presidential jet, I don't know about the other 3 jets, because I know that the last time the president went to Saudi Arabia, I had to use a private chartered jet, which is going to come at a cost to Nigerians, which is also going to be a lot much more. And the logistical dynamics of the president going on the commercial jets, waiting in line at the security points or whatever to take maybe an airpiece or something, it's also going to be cumbersome. We remember how everybody cried when before the president moved to Ato Rock due to the traffic congestion and all. So if the president has to, Nigeria is a country that has obvious security challenges. So if an assault on the safety of the Nigerian president is going to also have financial implications. I am not even trying to talk about the health or the well-being or the welfare of the president right now. I'm trying to talk about just the money aspect of it, that the cost of the president and his entourage flying in commercial jets will be not as economical because of what it will be required by the Nigerian military to protect the president of Nigeria, our country, while he's, in flight. So I understand.
But it's not like we've done.
Nigerians are bleeding.
It's not like we've done, a proper analysis of what it would cost to fly commercial. Other presidents fly commercial. The Nigerian president would not be the first. President William Ruto flies commercial. So what exactly is the big deal about the president flying commercial? And I've also heard arguments, that him flying commercial would also even promote local airlines. If Hadi Sirika had done well with Nigeria Air, we probably wouldn't be having this argument now. We'll be using Nigeria airplanes to fly the president while the presidential jet is down. The APC government, first of all, is still investigating itself for the billions of naira that Hadi Sirika allegedly mismanaged while claiming to be, fixing Nigeria Air or setting up Nigeria Air. So while they're investigating themselves, wouldn't it be better to fly commercial in the interim, since we cannot at this point afford a new jet after telling Nigerians that they need to tighten their belt and they need to persevere for a little while? Do you get the point?
I understand. I get your point, and I understand the fact that Nigerians, because of especially the nature of the hunger that is going on, which I think is the main problem that I think the president should fix. Because personally, I would say the president has not done great when it comes to the hunger management, the food crisis management. But when you talk about flying, even the Nigerian Air, had it been commissioned appropriately, would have been for flying passengers. So imagine the economic costs to disruption that it will cause if the Nigerian president has to be flying that Nigerian Air that should be carrying more people, because it will have pretty unique, itinerary. And when you look at the fact that you are saying, and we all know, not like you are saying, we all know that Nigeria has a problem when it comes to Nigeria has a problem when it comes to, you know, for finances. We need to get investors. We need to grow the economy. You need to invest money in order to be able to grow that economy that we are talking about. So these are the things that I'm talking about when I say Nigerians need to, you know, the Nigerian president needs to get his own private jets, his own form of transportation, be it chartered or, you know, renting. Because he cannot use commercial jets. Nigeria has security challenges. If, God forbid, the president of Nigeria should be, you know, should lose his life, it will also have financial implications on the Nigerian state too. And that is not what anybody wants. Just on the financial part, justification of it, buying a new jet right now, you know, they are definitely going to sell 3, according to what they have said. They are definitely going to sell 3. It's like you are trading it in. You are going to sell it 3. Maybe they use it for scraps or whatever, for parts, or just crush it. And you are going to buy new ones. And then that new one is going to be the property of not President Tinubu. He was flying private jet before he became president. It will be a property of the Nigerian people, of the Nigerian government, that successive presidents, just like President Obasanjo flew in this one, and then Yar'Adua, Jonathan, Buhari, and Tinubu after him did. Subsequent presidents for another maybe 20 years will be able to also use this. So Nigeria will be saving money in transportation.
All right.
I understand the visceral part of it. Definitely, I cannot dispute that.
Dr. Marindotti, from your assessment so far, would you say that this administration has shown concern, like genuinely cares about the needs of the Nigerian people with the way that it handled these affairs? Every other one, including this conversation about the jets. Would you say that this administration genuinely cares about the Nigerian citizens?
On the substance of it, yes. On the style of it, I can dispute that, because, you know, it doesn't seem as if the communication has been adequate enough in you know, letting Nigerians understand the decisions that they are making and why they should stick, you know, with the president through this problem. Because this is not the problem of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The problem we're having right now is the problem of Nigeria. And I know a lot of people have criticized the 2 major decisions that are causing a lot of these ruckus, which is essentially the unification of exchange rates and removal of fuel subsidy. But these are decisions that have to be taken, otherwise Nigeria is going nowhere. Our economy will never grow. The foreign exchange that we are talking about, the poor people don't use it. The poor people don't use money. So when you give subsidy, when you have 2 multiple exchange rates, it is people like Dangotes and Adenugas and Elumelus that are benefiting from it. If every time I give you or Sarage 1,000 naira, I give Olive 1 million, who am I giving money? That is what is happening. Even when you talk about this fuel subsidy too, even it's not that fuel subsidy, yes, the poor people use fuel, but the rich people use it more. So the rich people are the ones that are benefiting from the fuel subsidy. It is the same thing with the subsidy on electricity, which we need to fix too. You know, it is the rich man that has all the gadgets, that lives in Band A, that has 20 or 24 hours electricity in a day. Whereas in the Southern Senatorial District in Ondo State, they've not had light in about 10 years, which is what, you know, Governor Adamu is trying to fix right now. You know, so how many electricity subsidy have the people in the Southern Senatorial District of Ondo State gotten in the last 10 years? 0. But people in Band A are getting it. These are things that Nigerians need to know. India
I'm a little confused.
In 2014, well, I was just saying, in 2014, India also removed their fuel subsidy. And right now, we have Indians in the United States finishing their postgraduate and going back home to get a job because they've been able to invest. You cannot keep giving money to the rich people that don't need it. You need to be able to take that money and then invest it in education, healthcare, good roads, infrastructure that will make the quality of life of all Nigerians better. This is state culture that the president is trying to free us from. But I think they need to still work on food. Because right now we have 85% import duty on wheat, 75% on sugar, about maybe 70% on milk products, which we use to import.
Dr. Marindotti,
so poor people are hungry.
Yeah, because I don't want us to confuse issues here. Are you saying that, you know, the idea behind, you know, subsidy removal and of course, you know, the electricity tariff new laws also are to take money from the rich and give to the poor?
Yes, because those subsidies are going to the rich in the first place. The poor man that has 1-bedroom apartment, has 1 light and maybe 1 fan, is not using the same amount of electricity per kilowatt hour as Dangote in his mansion. That is the truth. So when you subsidize electricity for each kilowatt hour, Dangote would have used maybe 1 million of it before that poor man uses 1. So that those subsidies are going to the rich. And that is the reason why Nigeria is where it is today. I keep saying it. That is
but how does this this change now? What does that do? Because now the poor man that you're talking about has maybe 6 hours of electricity the whole day, and the rich man that you're referring to has 18 to 20 hours of electricity every day. So in what way has the poor man been helped? He's been given less electricity.
You are right. You are right, because the impact of these policies are going to be regressive at first. Because when you think about it, if you had 2,000 naira and I told you to pay 200 naira more, you may not be able to buy a plate of rice. But if I had 2 million naira and I am paying 200,000 naira more, which is both 10%, I will still be able to have a plate of rice, do dorime, have a good day. So that is what is happening. But the jury is out in that the fact that now that the government has this money, it can now invest it in the lives of the people. If the government, that is why you can see that, yes, even though we said the what's called our exchange rate is almost nothing, but President Tinubu has been able to pay down about 20% the value of the debt that he inherited from President Buhari. So I know we don't want to give President Tinubu any, credit. So that is why I want to thank Odumeje for using his ability checker to bring down the debt. So maybe if he should continue releasing his, powers, Indaboski and Babose will help us pay it more and fix all our problems.
Yeah, no one is, arguing about whether he should be giving credit or not. I'm sure that if there are things that Nigerians can see, evidently, that the president has improved in their quality of life, they will give him credit. But it's not. There's not a lot of things that you can point to this morning and say, in this regard, the president has improved the quality of life of the average Nigerian. The excuse, remains that 1 year is not enough. We're still in the teething stages. We're still building. That has been the excuse, since the administration started. But I want to ask, if you continue to, of course, have the same perspectives, will your views remain the same if we had a totally different person in office? If we had a Peter Obi, for example, in office, hypothetical situation here, would you, of course, I would support his idea of buying a new airplane when, of course, Nigeria currently is struggling with wealth and struggling to even pay salaries?
Absolutely. I will agree with you. I actually tried to support Peter. He was the candidate of the youth. I declined to go in that direction when he said he was not going to unify the exchange rate, because I always knew that this only benefited the rich. That was the only reason when he said it at Lagos Business School. So if Peter Obi had been the president, it is about looking at the numbers. It's about looking at that. I'm not even looking at President Tinubu's health or welfare or the possibility of having a plane crash right now. I'm just looking at the numbers. It makes a lot more economic sense for Nigeria to buy a new one and maybe at whatever financing rates and pay it off, and then you will not be spending those money that you are wasting fixing a beating a dead horse, because those planes are essentially at this point dead horses. So you are right when you talk about the fact that the Nigerian people have not felt the impact of these policies, because they say they are the first person to feel the impact of a negative policy, and they are going to be the last person to get their benefits. They are going to be the first to feel the negative side and the last to feel the positive side. So it will take time. That is why I feel like the communication needs to improve so that the Nigerian people know that President Tinubu is taking money from the rich and giving to the poor. When you look at it, the man you are looking at on TV right there, he is a billionaire. He has money. So when he valued Naira, he lost money too. He took a dagger to his own pocket. But he did it because he is serving people. He is not serving self. If he was serving self, he will preserve his own wealth. He lost wealth too. Because this thing is what we need to do. We cannot keep feeding the fat rich people. They don't need it. They should pay for what they are consuming.
All right, Dr. Marindoti, Let's talk about sacrifice. Now, part of the last Salah holiday message that President Tinubu preached was talking about sacrifice and how that's the reason for that particular Salah, and urged the Nigerians as usual to keep sacrificing. Don't you think that maybe it's time for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to sacrifice as well? If the Nigerian presidential jet is bad, he does have private jets, right? Shouldn't it be time for him to maybe fly his own presidential jet, his own private jets, and as opposed to buying a presidential jet? And I mean, we've seen presidents in other countries taking sacrifices. We saw it happen in Gabon. Yes, he's a military leader, but he refused the presidential wage and saying the presidential salary. So is it not time for him maybe to demonstrate that servant leadership by also making sacrifices for the people?
Yeah, they say that, but that would be him trying to play to populist, sentiments. When you talk about, especially if you go back to this private jet thing, yes, President Tinubu can use his own private jet to fly. He was using it before he became president. But what will the next president use when they come into office? They'll
figure it out. They'll figure it out by that time, because by then there maybe be some sense of normalcy. But for now, because the basics aren't even there.
The government is a continuum, so we cannot be saying that we are going to invest just for the 8 year or 4 years of President Tinubu. I think
we need to go. Dr. Marindoti, I have 10 seconds to quickly ask and get your answer. Name one thing Mr. President has done to show that he's also making sacrifices.
He unified the exchange rate and lost a lot of value to it. Took a dagger to his own pocket.
Is that a personal sacrifice for him? All right. You know what? We'll continue this conversation.
He lost one too.
Okay. Dr. Marindoti, thank you so much for your time with us. We'll love to have you again.
Thank you.
All right. Still interesting conversations there concerning the presidential jet and the reactions that Nigerians have to the presidential jet. We'll have more conversations this morning. We'll be looking at ASUU and what the impending strike might look like. The Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, has urged President Bola Tinubu to sign and implement the renegotiated 2009 ASUU federal government agreement in accordance with the collective bargaining principles outlined in the International Labour Organization Convention. Last week, the Benin zone of the Academic Staff Union of Universities decried the non-review of members' salaries after the last exercise that took place 15 years ago.
The union has vowed to escalate its struggle against the federal government over lingering demands, including funding for public universities, revitalization, unpaid salaries, and implementation of the University Transparency and Accountability Solution, UTAS. Dr. Abubakar Shilia, the chairperson, of the University of Maiduguri ASUU chapter, stated in a press conference that a referendum will be conducted within 4 weeks to determine the next line of action, potentially including a nationwide strike. We're joined this morning by the President of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, Professor Emmanuel Oshudeke. Good morning, and thanks for joining us, Professor Oshudeke.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
All right. Let's quickly, ask, have there been any recent talks with the federal government regarding ASUU's demands between the last, strike action and now?
Well, for this regime, for this government, we've not had any formal talk on all the issues for which we were on strike. And we are surprised because one of the people who helped to negotiate the call-off of the last strike is the leadership of this particular regime. And for us, after more than 1 year, and we have written to the president, we have written to the Senate president, we've written to the speaker, and nothing.
Yeah, I mean, Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila was one of those who facilitated the negotiation with ASUU in the last time. He's currently the chief of staff of the president. Does ASUU feel disappointed, in the fact that he's not been able to convey your messages and the promises that you made to Mr. President?
Well, that is actually what we are talking about, because he was the major intervener that during that strike. It was well known to Nigerian people. All the promises made, and they even built most of those promises to the last 2023 budget. When they came in, nothing has happened in those areas. Through renegotiation of the agreement, which we finished with Nimibri's committee, I'm hoping that they will go back, look at it, and come to sign. Or if their area of disagreement, we actually before now they would have said a committee to meet with us to look at those areas of disagreement, and we saw them and sign, and we move on as a country. That's what we saw. Well, that's what we thought would happen, because when the government was, this president was campaigning, and he said there was no more strike in the universities. So we told them you don't want no more strike in the universities, no more disruption. As soon as he came in, you should have put a high-power team of patriotic Nigerians to meet with the unions, not just us, to look at all the contending issues and then look for how to resolve them. But see, it's more a year now. A year is one quarter of the tenure of the regime, and nothing, not even a meeting. Even when we have written requesting for meetings, nothing.
Okay, just so we're clear, because we've seen that there have been a number of strike actions that ASUU has been on, and I know that one of the demands is to implement the Nimi-Briggs renegotiated draft term. So if you can help us highlight again, as clearly as you can, what exactly are ASUU's demands this time?
The issue for which we are asking government, to implement are: one, let's complete the renegotiation. Like we said in other fora, is that in 2009, we had an agreement with the government. And we said every 3 years, that agreement will be reviewed. But it's 15 years now, it has not been reviewed. And that agreement indicates the most important thing in that agreement is the issue of salary. If lecturer still earn the same salary that a professor still earn the same salary was earning in 2009. As of 2009, the salary of a professor is compared between $1,500 to $2,000 per month. But today it's about $300 per month. And you see earn the same thing. And the side effect of it is that many Nigerians, the rich are living, the non-patriotic one, and many who face so disgruntled have left the country. But nobody is coming in to join. So we are putting more pressure on those on ground. So that is number one. Number two, there were issues in the 2009 agreement that have not been implemented. The earned academic allowances, that is payment for the work done in addition to your normal duty. Two, the issue of revitalization fund, which we agreed on that the government will put 1.3 trillion in the Nigerian university system, out of which the Jonathan government put in 200 billion, and since then, little or nothing has been added. Then we have the issue of proliferation of universities. You can't fund the university you have, and you are having universities all over the place. We now call them constituency project universities. Who are going to lecture them? Would they allow their children to attend those schools, universities? Will any of those proposing this new university allow their children to attend them? So that is some of the issues for which we are asking government that we should implement. They told us in January that they have removed the teacher restriction from IPPIS, but today we are seeing being paid with IPPIS, not implemented, and so forth and so on. So these are some of the major issues for which we have asked governments to let's meet and discuss them and cut a way forward how they can be implemented, and they have agreed to meet with us.
All right, so to be clear, between the last agreement that you had and now, has there been any one of them that the government implemented, even if, not 100%?
Well, there are some that like the issue of salary wage increase, they did in 2009. But in that agreement in 2009, we had two tables. One is table A and table B. Table 2 indicated that they will start with that and then move to that table 2, which is African average, which they never did, 2009. Then we also talk issue of revitalization. Like I said, after negotiating, the then president sent up a team called the Revitalization Need Assessment Team to go around all Nigerian universities and look at what is happening. And by the time they came back, both sides agreed that we need to revamp the university system during Jonathan era. Remember, we had a 14-minute meeting with the president then. And that regime released 200 billion. Other regimes want to release 200 billion every year, which they never did. The issue of earned allowance, they were paying, they agreed they will distribute the salary, until now it has not been done. So these are some of the issues that are very germane to our members. And then we also have to say, release the decision panel report, which they released and have not been implemented.
All right, let's talk about what the next steps are. We hear that there's a referendum coming up. What should we expect? Are we expecting a strike indefinitely? At what point or what deadline have you given the government before there most likely is a strike?
I seem to be having a slight issue with the connection there with Professor Emmanuel Oshedeke, the ASUU president. Of course, explain the issues the body seems to be having with the current Nigerian government. They, of course, had the longest running strike just a few years ago for 8 months, and then got into agreements with the Nigerian government headed by President Muhammadu Buhari back then. The negotiations, I remember, were chaired or facilitated a lot by the current chief of staff to the president, Honorable Femi Amina.
All right.
Welcome back, Professor Oshedeke.
Professor Oshedeke, what do we expect? We hear that there's a referendum coming up. What should we expect? And do you have a deadline for the government intervention before you maybe go on strike?
Well, we have a 4 weeks deadline. And the idea is that within these 4 weeks, government should do the needful. There is no need for a strike. In other climes, where people love the education, where political leaders have their children in universities within their country, you won't allow people to give you 4 weeks to resolve a minor issue. Let's meet and resolve issues. But here, because their children are not in the universities, their relationships are not in this university, they are using our resources to fund them all over the world. That's why they are not interested. So within 4 weeks, we expect that within the 4 weeks, they should meet with us and so that we resolve this issue for the interest of the children of the Nigerian poor and Nigerian so-called middle class that does not exist. Not because they are children, because they are already abroad. So we are appealing to this government. Let's resolve this issue for the interest of these Nigerian children of the poor who are suffering, who are passing through what nobody will want to pass through. Let them meet with us and implement what they have agreed on.
Yeah,
the agreement, memorandum of understanding, let them implement them.
Yeah, I mean, I also got to see a news report yesterday from the Association of Nigerian Students, National Association of Nigerian Students, I beg your pardon, and another body asking that, there should be some, consideration of Nigerian students and Nigerian parents. And so, does ASUU also feel that pressure, that the idea of going back to, on strike might put too much pressure on the Nigerian university and the Nigerian students. And so you maybe, should sheathe your swords.
You see, when I hear people talk about strike, I feel it somehow. I don't understand what they are talking. Strike is a symptom of a problem. It's not the problem. I want people to be telling the president, the government that people should resolve these issues, not a strike. We said 4 weeks, go and resolve these issues. So we should not be talking about...
but if the government doesn't resolve these issues, I mean, from what you've said, they made commitments, you had agreements many, many months ago. A lot of them have not been fulfilled. So if the government doesn't resolve these issues, what next?
This is that we should call the government and ask them why the press, our press, should be calling the government, why are you not doing this? Why are you not respecting the agreement? Why are you not taking the children of the poor? That's what we should be hearing, not whether with a strike or no strike. We should be hearing, pressure should be on them to do what is needful. The money they are using is the public money. People who elected them, the majority are these people we are talking about, who children are going to stay at home. Should there be? And we don't believe there should be a strike. There's no reason for a strike.
Yeah.
In other times, you don't wait for a strike. You resolve the issue. We have been very, very fair to this government. They helped to resolve the issue in 2023. We have been very patient with them. We've given them 1 year to settle down and then go, but they have not. So the pressure of whether there is strike or no strike should be on government. We are not thinking about strike. We are thinking about the government resolving the issues. And Nigeria should be thinking about Nigeria resolving the issues, not about strike.
Well, we certainly hope that, we do want this to be resolved, Professor Oshedeke, because we can remember that the government and ASUU have been at loggerheads for the longest time. And at the end of the day, it's the university students and as well the academic staff union that suffer as a result of this. So we do hope that it will come to middle ground and that there'll be no need for a strike. Professor Oshedeke, thank you so much for your time with us.
Thank you.
All right. This is, of course, Breakfast Central. If you're just tuning in, let's share with you some of the conversations we've had this morning. Presidency insists on new jet as debt profile soars. We had Dr. Marin Dotti join us to talk about this. And ASUU threatens first strike over old salary. Professor Oshodeke says there's no need for the strike. He just wants the government to come to the negotiating table and do its part. NLC absolves Kogi over non-payment of salaries. And that's one of the conversations we've had this morning. But let's share what's coming up next on Breakfast Central.
Coming up next, Nigeria's insecurity is an inherited compromise, says President Bola Tinubu, I beg your pardon. And also, the newspaper front pages, what are the stories making headlines across Nigeria? We'll also be sharing with you what Nigerians are saying this morning.
Thank you for joining us this morning. We'll be looking at the papers and reviewing what the front pages of the newspapers are saying, starting with this Nigeria. On the front page of this Nigeria newspaper, this particular lecture and awards people, they are very unrelenting because they've been putting ads every day. But tension in Sokoto over alleged plots to dethrone Sultan. VP Shetima Murik warns against it. Senate panel seeks fresh documents from Accountant General over 30 trillion naira ways and means. It's a very, very soft front page this morning. So let's move away from this Nigeria to punch you with the punch, even though we don't subscribe to violence.
The Punch newspapers this morning, big story there says, Dangote refinery operators seek federal government intervention as marketers opt for fuel imports. Dealers slam IOCs, NMDPRA silent amid dirty fuel import accusation. Senate writes AGF meets Cardoso over 30 trillion naira loan probe. And also minimum wage. Be patient with Tinubu presidency pleads. Cholera spreads to 107 local government areas, 1,528 persons infected. Anti-Sultan plot. Shetima, PDP warn as Sokoto denies allegation. Seems to be a virus spreading, in those areas. Wire fraud. Court orders Nigerians extradition to the United States. Northwest insecurity affecting all the zones. Tinubu laments. Cleaner bags life jail for sexually assaulting baby in church. That's such good news. That's away from the Punch this morning. Let's go to the Vanguard newspapers.
All right, on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper, NCDC declares cholera emergency, sets up measures. Of course, Nigeria has recorded 53 deaths, 1,528 suspected cases in 31 states. Rivers crisis, ex-local government chairpersons flout police order and stage protests. Boko Haram abducts High Court judge, wife, 2 others, not good. Minimum wage, approved 250,000 naira demand to match inflationary trend. Labour tells Tinubu. Napoli to drop asking price for Osimhen. At the top of the paper, foreign loans drive up importation by 19% to $330 million. Shetima to Sokoto government, guard Sultan jealously. He's an institution. My government won't slow down until insecurity is eliminated, Tinubu vows. It will take decades to eradicate banditry in northwest Nigeria, says Sultan. And today is a public holiday in some parts of the nation because Davido and Choma's thrilling love story as they tied the knots today. Congratulations to Chivido. This morning we're joined by Ikechukwu Amechi as he reviews the paper with us. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Always my pleasure, Olive. How are you?
I'm well excited about the wedding today. As soon as my show is done, I'm going online to be an online attender of Davido and Choma's wedding. But on to political matters. Rivers State is in the news again. It seems like it's a new day, new update. The local government chairpersons, we did see that there was a planned stage protest and the police had come out warning them not to go ahead because there had been reports about the protest being potentially hijacked. Now, even despite the police warnings, we're seeing on the front page of the last newspaper I just took that they still went ahead and staged the protest. What exactly is going on in Rivers State? Governor, on the other hand, has already, handed the local government to the caretaker committee chairman. So the other ones are refusing to leave. These new ones are already in there, standing in as caretaker. It looks like the house that is divided within itself that cannot stand.
Nothing new is going on in Rivers State. Of course, we've discussed this here. It is the impunity that has taken over our entire political landscape. And the local government chairmen that are protesting and all that, they're all pawns on the chess game the people who are playing these games are Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, and of course the incumbent governor, Sim Fubara. So people are leaving the substance to pursue in shadows. And what is at stake is not even good governance, it's not even the welfare of the people, it is who controls the resources of an entire state. Because when Governor Nyesom Wike talks about his structure that is being dismantled by his successor, it boils down to this.
Yeah.
One man bringing, in a so-called democracy, deciding who becomes the local government chairman, who becomes elected members of the State House of Assembly, who becomes elected members of the National Assembly, who becomes the governor. Of course, he boasted that he bought forms for all these people in a democracy.
Including those who went to the National Assembly.
All of them.
Yes.
Everybody who contested the election in PDP in Rivers State in 2023, Ezemo Nyesom Wike bought forms for all of them and rolled them into office to maintain his structure. And what is that structure? The structure is that even when there is an incumbent governor, the members of the State House of Assembly take dictates from outside. Even the Commissioner for Finance or the Accountant General will not agree to release money demanded by the governor because somebody somewhere, the tax master, has not given the order for those things to be released. Look, the problem in Rivers State is simple. It is high time the people called to order these guys who are fermenting trouble for them. Because as long as this crisis lingers, nothing will happen in Rivers State. So the people need to do what they need to do. The police is not playing a neutral role. Yes, it is the responsibility of the Nigerian state to ensure that there is law and order, to ensure that the state does not degenerate into anarchy. But for crying out loud, how is it that a people whose tenure elapsed, constitutionally 3 years elapsed, are making all these troubles? Let us take away the people who are arguing that, yes, that the governors are also not supposed to appoint caretaker committees and all that. But what is the business of those whose tenure
has elapsed?
Elapsed. What is their business? Demonstrating that what should happen, that they should be called back for tenure elongation of 6 months that was handed to them by members of a State House of Assembly that did not have the legitimacy because they have left their political party for another political party contrary to the dictates of the 1999 Constitution. So, you see, when we see all this manner of impunity, we see the ones going on in Kano State, we see everywhere. Somebody becomes a governor and he becomes a god, literally. This is not democracy.
Yeah. You know, and you know, I mean, you know, I've said it, you know, maybe once or twice, you know, that there's nothing that you could have achieved in 3 years as local government chairman that you suddenly want to achieve in 6 months, you know. So this has nothing to do with...
It has nothing to do with the people. It has nothing to do with the welfare and good governance of Rivers State. It has all to do with the politics of godfatherism in Rivers State. That is what is playing on. So the people should appreciate the fact that these people don't mean well for them. And if we say we are going to salvage our so-called democracy, the people must have a buy-in into what is going on. This idea that only one man will decide who gets what, you make all the authoritative allocation of the values of the people. No, it cannot continue. It is impunity.
Yeah.
And that is not democracy.
All right, we might come back to this, but I want us to, look at this Nigerian newspapers once again. I think it also shows up on the Punch. The 30 trillion naira story. It says here, Senate panel seeks fresh documents from Accountant General over 30 trillion naira ways and means. So that has repeatedly come up recently. Where do you think we're going with this one?
We are going nowhere. We are going nowhere. How many of the proofs carried out by the National Assembly, whether the Senate or the House of Representatives, has ever seen the light of the day? The people who are carrying the probe, don't forget, the incumbent Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, was a minister in the Buhari cabinet that sat and demanded for this. Many of the National Assembly members, particularly the senators, the Senate President who sat and approved this, Lawan.
Yes, still part of that Senate.
Is still in the Senate.
Yes.
So who is probing who? Are they probing themselves? Or are they probing who? Or are they saying that this is all about Emefiele? Since nobody is mentioning Buhari in all the mess that happened in the 8 years that he was in office. So what are they probing? All these are antics to calm things down, to let the people forget, so that we will continue business as usual. So I'm not expecting anything, because who is probing who? What are they probing? Are they probing themselves, the same senators that approved this, or are they probing the Federal Executive Council that made the demand, or are they saying this is all about Emefiele, so that if you jail Emefiele, then all the atrocities that were committed under the watch of President Muhammadu Buhari for 8 years, we've brought a closure to all of them. No, it doesn't make sense, sir.
Yeah, and it's also not comforting. I mean, I don't know if you feel any comfort, with the current National Assembly, the 10th National Assembly. Do you, see or sense that maybe things might be done different this time compared to the Ahmad Lawan, led National Assembly? If
anything, I would say it will be worse. It will be worse. Of course, you don't expect an Akpabio-led National Assembly. Don't forget, he's the president of the National Assembly.
Yes.
Or the chairman of the National Assembly. I don't know what the designation is, as much as he's the president of the Senate. Look, Ahmed Lawan said that anything President Muhammadu Buhari brought to the table will be approved. In fact, Akpabio is going out of his way not to approve what has been brought, to even tell the president what to bring. Of course, the National Assembly told the president to go and buy 2 new aircraft.
Yeah, but Akpabio, denied that yesterday. He said, he has no plans of buying or pushing for aircraft for Mr. President.
I watched on a national television last night where the chairman of the House of Representatives Committee on Defense appeared on live television last night at about 9 p.m. to say how the House of Representatives investigated that the aircraft being used by the president out of a presidential fleet of 6 aircraft.
6 aircraft.
That 3 are not serviceable, that even the other ones that are... So, who is deceiving who? Akpabio said this, but the House of Representatives is saying that they did approve that. And they said they had approved it, that it is left for the president to choose how he's going to buy the aircraft, whether it is by lease or whatever. So the point I'm trying to make is not what Akpabio is denying or not denying. The point I'm trying to make is that there is no difference between the 10th National Assembly and the 9th National Assembly, because they don't have the capacity to say no to whatever demand the president makes.
And I remember, I'm apologizing that I think we're extending this National Assembly conversation too long, but I remember the Saraki-led National Assembly was criticized for doing the opposite. It was seen as one of the blockages rather to a successful Nigeria during President Muhammadu Buhari. And then we had that National Assembly dissolved. We had a new National Assembly that then decided that they were going to support anything the president did.
You know, why we have three arms of government is for there to be checks and balances, particularly the legislature, which serves as a body that contains the representatives of the people.
Yes.
And that is why they have the power of the purse. They make appropriations. They appropriate the funds for the running of the state. They ought to serve as a check on the powers of the executive. The judiciary is there to interpret what the Constitution says, and when there is a conflict, to adjudicate. So each arm of government is independent, yet they need to cooperate in order to have a seamless administration.
All right.
But what we have is a situation where there is only one arm of government. In the states, it is even worse.
Yeah.
The state houses of assembly are only appendages
Of the executive.
Of the executive.
Government house.
The government house. Unfortunately, since the 9th Assembly, the National Assembly is almost, that is why the president will decide or determine who becomes the Senate president, who becomes the Speaker of the House of Representatives. It is only the choices made by the president, those he said this person is going to be this, that eventually clinch the post. The Saraki you mentioned was not the choice of the presidency.
Yeah, I remember clearly.
And that was why they had the issues that they had. And when they came to 2019, they made sure that not only did he didn't even come back to the National
Assembly.
And they got Lawan.
Yeah. Quickly, let's just talk about insecurity challenges. Terrorists occupy Niger communities, slaughter chickens, pound yam.
Terrorists have no good job.
That's on the Daily Trust, by the way. Bandits kill Sokoto Varsity's deputy VC. That's a very sad story that I saw yesterday. Also, Boko Haram terrorists abduct judge and wife in Borno. These are the major security stories that we can see. But in other newspapers, we saw the president also responding to security challenges, saying his government won't slow down until insecurity is eliminated. Tinubu vows. It says it will take decades to eradicate banditry in the northwest, and that's from the Sultan. So let's just quickly each have your thoughts on where we are currently with the fight against insecurity, if we're making any progress.
We are still far. Despite the soundbites of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. You know, the deputy vice chancellor of the Osmanu for the university in Sokoto that was killed yesterday is a sad reminder of where we actually are.
Yeah, so just apologies. Let's quickly speak with Alta. Good morning, Alta. Alta, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm on the line.
All right, good morning. Go ahead, please. We have about 30 seconds to a minute.
Oh, yeah, I can hear you. Yes, my contribution here is I want to talk about this river crisis. The river issue, I don't think it's not a problem. It's all over in the country. Come to Plateau State and see what is happening. Plateau State, you have caretaker committee chairman also. And you have elected chairman when this governor came into power. And the same thing, the elected chairman, their tenure is going to elapse by October. And now, today, their caretaker chairman, they are on the seat. And the elected ones, they want their case in the appeal court up to today. They refuse to swear them in. They refuse to allow them to come to the power to the office. And at the same thing, the out of elected distinct House of Assembly members, they swearing in 9 up to now. As I'm talking to you today, up to now they haven't swearing in 7 out of 16. So you see, I don't think, and Rivers State is not an APC state. Rivers State, the House of Assembly and the chairman elected, they are under PDP. They're elected by PDP, and now today they are saying that they are APC. Rivers is not an APC state; it's a PDP state. And Wiki has never said that it's an APC member. What are they fighting?
Yeah, all right. Thanks for your thoughts this morning. You know, I think he's saying it's the same thing happening in Plateau State as in Rivers. Please conclude on
So the issue of insecurity is getting worse. It's not getting any better, despite whatever President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is saying. In the same Niger State, and just like in many other parts of the Northwest, farmers pay to bandits to be allowed to go to their farms. We have 2 lines of authorities, that by the state actors and that by the non-state actors. People are being killed every day. There are some villages, there are some communities that those who own those communities are all living in IDP camps, whereas bandits, strange elements, are effectively occupying those communities as we speak. So it's not getting any better. Yes, every day we hear news, the military will say they have neutralized 500 bandits, they have done this, they have done that. But the question I ask, are these people multiplying every day?
So, and that's a good question, because I also think the same thing when you hear these numbers.
Are these people increasing by their numbers every day? Is it that those that are being neutralized, they manage to resurrect and come back to inflict?
Or does this really just tell us that we're dealing with a situation where we have thousands of these people?
It could be anything. Those are the questions that we need to ask. Or it could also be that the military is also perfecting the act of propaganda, telling the people what they need to know, because it doesn't make sense. 5,000 bandits surrendered, 5,000 bandits arrested, 2,000 bandits neutralized, and the very next day, you see people. Look, a retired army general was killed in his house in Abuja on Sunday morning or Saturday morning. A retired army general. How insecure. Yes, fortunately, yesterday 4 people were paraded who admitted to the crime. But how insecure can the people get? That a retired army general in his own house, in an estate in Abuja, was murdered in cold blood by so-called armed
robbers.
So it is bad. I will suggest that whatever it is that we are doing, we are not there. Not by any imagination, we are not there. So whatever it is that we are doing, we should intensify those things, because the sovereignty of Nigeria is effectively being challenged by non-state actors.
Yeah.
By non-state actors. And I don't see how anybody in good conscience can say that he is winning the war against banditry and terrorism in this country right now. Tomorrow, maybe, but right now, we are not winning that war.
I mean, you know, every day, I hope that we see brighter stories in the news every day, but today is not different. I think the only thing that, you know, made me smile this morning, not made me smile, but the only good news we saw in the news this morning was the cleaner bagging a life sentence for assaulting a baby in church. You know, every other story here just looks very gloomy.
That is even still sad.
I mean, it's a good thing that at least, you know, somebody's been sent to jail.
Yeah.
You know, that one I'm happy about.
Davido is wedding today, according
Oh yes,
to...
that's great. That's great news, and it's on the front page of the newspapers.
Please,
it's a national
let's
holiday.
focus on
Davido
important things.
2024.
Also, Olive is already dressed for it. So,
you understand?
So don't deny her. Don't deny her the only news today that is making her smile.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for stopping by, Ikechukwu Amechi, and for your thoughts also on these stories. Truly appreciate it.
Always my pleasure.
All right. And just to remind everyone that the phone lines are always open. You can always be a part of it from whichever part of the country that you're watching from. Even if you're watching online on YouTube, you can also call those numbers that are on your screen while we're going through the newspapers and share your thoughts with us. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we continue this morning with Breakfast Central and share with you what Nigerians are saying.
On June 20th, Presiding Initiative, a Pan-African social enterprise, raised alarm over its discovery of the sale of national identification numbers, NINs, bank verification numbers, BVNs, and other personal data of Nigerians on a website known as anyverify.com.ng. Now, it was found out that these information could be bought for as low as 100 naira. Now, I don't know which is more ridiculous. The fact that our information could be potentially compromised, or the fact that it is sold for a meager sum of 100 naira. What really is the worth of a Nigerian identity? I digress. Now, in reaction to this report, the NIMC has denied claims regarding the exposure of sensitive data of Nigerians as alleged and reported. The Commission assured the public that the data of Nigerians have not been compromised and that the Commission has not authorized any website or entity to sell or misuse the National Identification Number, NIN, amongst all the identities stated in the report, NIMC said. They had also gone ahead to warn Nigerians about being careful when you're logging in your details on certain websites, to just be wary of phishing websites. Now, yesterday on Breakfast Central, Executive Director of Presiding Initiative, Gbenga Sheson, said that his organization was able to obtain the NIN slip of Nigeria's Communication Minister, Bosun Tijani, as well as that of the head of Nigeria's Data Protection Commission, NDPC, Vincent Olatunji, for 100 naira each on anyverify.com.ng. He highlighted the grave implications of what this means, and Nigerians on X are reacting. Let's look at some of their tweets. Now, a number of them have shared their tweets, and we start with Engineer Kingsley, who says, "This is a serious matter. I remember a lady I met at the bank last month. She lost her phone on going to retrieve her line. She was told that her NIN is linked to about 5 lines, and she was never aware of that. I guess this was how it happened." Now, this is, of course, in reaction to what exactly this can mean. They talked about security, online security with your bank details, as well as financial security. Let's take a few more other tweets to see exactly what they're saying. Bello Shehu says, "This claim is false. As individuals, we must be cautious when visiting unverified websites, that's phishing sites, and sharing our personal data. This can compromise our sensitive information and leave us vulnerable." Now let's look at the next tweet. The next tweet is from Gbenga Sheson. Now this is the Executive Director of Presiding Initiative, who was a guest on our show yesterday. He says, "Breaking. After getting a slap on the wrist for earlier infraction, NIMC._NG allows website to sell sensitive data. We tested the website, archived it, and could pay for NIN slips belonging to FMCID Nigeria Minister Bosun Tijani and NDPCNGR National Commissioner V. Olatunji 1. This is, of course, what we said earlier, and this is what has caused Nigerians to show concern that if they could actually get their tweets, then what really are we talking about? Now, Novi Everest says, in March 2024, FIJ reported the data of Nigerians is being sold for 100 naira. NIMC claimed it was Nigerians who were selling their data, so they decided to buy that of the minister supervising the agency for 100 naira. So does it mean Bosun sold his NIN data for 100 naira? Lessons. The next tweet is from Novi Everest as well. She says, "Today isn't the first day the news of NIMC selling people's data has been exposed. But Bosun is so focused on AI without power supply that he does not even care. Left basic things to be obsessed with AI." There's still more reactions regarding this. And the next tweet we're taking is from Queen Amina, who says, "I'm tired of you people. You thrive on negativity. NIMC addressed the public and you still come online to tweet what's not true. Your soul is damaged if what you always want from the country is bad news." Well, she doesn't seem to agree with the position that a number of that Presiding Initiative is taking. But Trend with Ola says, "Dear NIMC, if this ends up being true, then it's really sad that Nigerians are not safe because their data are not protected. This is a total breach of data privacy and lawsuit is imminent. If Minister Bosun Tijani's NIN slip can be purchased for 100 naira online, how much will they buy that of ordinary Nigerians? And these are all the reactions that we can take this morning, but there have been some reactions, some for, some against this. But in conclusion, whilst the NIMC assures Nigerians of safety, and we do desperately want to believe it, if there's cause for concern, it's important that it be looked into for what it's worth. We hope that the NIMC can look into these claims, and we would certainly love to have the NIMC as a guest on our show here on Breakfast Central. But for now, that's all that we can take on what Nigerians are saying. President Bola Tinubu has described the ongoing insecurity in Nigeria, particularly in the northwest region, as a result of inherited security compromises. He attributed the banditry and insurgency to historical injustices suffered by conflict victims. Speaking at a two-day security and peace summit organized by the Northwest Governors Forum and United Nations Development Program, Vice President Shetima representing Tinubu, noting that addressing the nation's security challenges requires tackling historical injustices, reversing institutional weaknesses, and countering the ideological mischief affecting peace and security. Joining us to discuss this further is Senior Researcher and Project Coordinator, Institute for Security Studies, Dr. Ndubisi Christian Ani. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning, and thank you for inviting me to the program.
All right. Now, based on the President's address, we can see that the three major issues being highlighted that are regarded as the foundation of Nigeria's insecurity issues, they're being stated there. But talk to us, first of all, is this excuse enough that the current insecurity challenges that we have, he says, are inherited insecurity problems?
Yeah, no, I think he's very right on this, that it's inherited. If you look at it from his administration point of view, that is just 1 year plus now. So when you look at it from that perspective, yes, it is inherited. But then not to forget that he is part of governance for a long time. Throughout the process of these insecurities developing. So he's part of governance, and he also attributes himself as being the one who brought Buhari to power. So it's very important to see that, so a lot of these insecurities that we are facing now also emerged during President Buhari's era, especially the issues of banditry, which metamorphosed from the farmer header crisis and also the terrorist incidents. So he's right on that aspect, but then I see that, it's also an excuse trying to say, okay, give us some time, we're going to address some of the threats.
Yeah. I mean, we keep talking about time, and we've spoken about time many, many times. The president, of course, in his speech also pointed out the weakness of our judiciary, weakness of our security agencies, and a couple of other things are some of the reasons why this might be difficult. But I mean, you can tell when a government is serious about addressing issues. So from what you've seen, do you see any concerted effort by the current administration to, even in the most little form, address some of these issues that would then, lead to an improved security situation in the near future?
Yeah, so I think that's a very important question you asked. That yes, he can have the excuses and say, okay, he's not part of the causes of all its inherited issues, but then what is in place currently, to address some of the threats? Now, when we look at what is happening in the country, we look at some of the. Let me use the example of Okwama, for instance, in the Niger Delta area, where civilians were killed after some military officers were reportedly killed in that area. And then there's this rampant attack on civilians that happened. Those are how insecurities develop. Over time, the children of those who have been afflicted, they see the Nigerian state as a problem. They see the country as being inimical to their progress. Then they join different security outfits, whether it's illicit or illicit, for them to carry out their attacks. So, when you begin to ask, so are you going back to the same scripts that have caused some of these insecurities? And then we also look at, what steps has it taken, for instance, engaging communities in the places where these attacks have been happening? For instance,
but hold on, Mr. Ani. So we're also not, maybe misdirecting blame here. The president, obviously, is popularly known that he can't be everywhere at the same time. He's not going to be in Sokoto and be in Benue State and also be in Edo State all at the same time. There are persons that have been left in charge of these, these areas. There are people whose responsibility it is. So would it be safe to redirect our blame and our pressure to these people, to the Inspector General of Police, to commissioners of police across the country, to heads of security agencies across the country, and say that they're the ones who have failed Nigerians? Because they're the ones who request a budget every year. I believe that, money from the 2024 budget is, sent to these agencies. And so can we blame them instead? Or do we constantly, of course, hit blame on Mr. President without focusing on these ones?
No, as in we have to blame the president, as in he's the chief, he's the person in charge. And your disposition and your body posture to engage in your ministers, to engage in the people the Inspector General of Police, the army chiefs, and all that contributes to the level of their action. When you're not being tough on them and then also demanding greater accountability, there's no way we can, absolve you of the blame. As in, it's like saying you appointed, you send someone that the person is not efficient, and then you send them and you're not following up on the level of their accountability and, following up on a regular basis to what extent that they're operating. So there is a lot of issues around that. And then we're also talking about, some key infrastructures that the government should have made in the first place, such as investing in satellite imagery, and important drones. We can talk about the corruption within the armed forces. We can talk about corruption within the police forces, but then yet the buck stops with you. Are you investigating enough to see whether the funds that have been allocated for such useful technologies are being used? So in many ways, yes, the culpability also goes to the Inspector General of Police and then the army chiefs and all that. But then he has a key responsibility making sure he puts them in check, because those are his appointees. And then when we look at it, it's also a larger developmental problem. Security is not just about the insecurity, about armies on the street, or let's say the police also going around looking for bandits. What programs have we put for victim support? So those are critical areas.
All right. There are so many things that have been highlighted, that the President highlighted in his speech. Of course, sharing that banditry has cast a dark shadow on, Nigeria, and saying that if we have to win this war, there's going to be a lot of focus on the Northwest. We have a lot of things that are currently distracting us right now, or maybe in some measure fueling a lot of the insecurity challenge that we have. But we have poverty. Do you think that at this point, where we are right now, that the fight against poverty, against, or the need to ensure that the average Nigerian has access to even a 1 square or 2 square meal, has in some way trumped the fight against insecurity? How can we find a balance between the two? Do you see that happening?
And it's always together, things that are joined together. That the fight against insecurity against poverty is critical for the fight against insecurity. On the one hand. So what we see, for instance, in places in the Northwest is that there's an increasing resort to drugs, and that resort to drugs is not just because people want to take drugs, but it's also for stress management out of issues relating to responsibilities and poverty, and underdevelopment, lack of jobs and hopelessness in some of those areas. So we begin to see that, poverty is critical to understanding insecurity. Not to say that poor people go to become causes for insecurity, but then to also understand that it is an enabler. It is something that leads people to that. When we look at how people take drugs and how drugs are enabling people and motivating people to engage in criminal activities, it's something that is there, that we need to look at. When we look at the inflation rate right now in Nigeria, it has gone so high. When we look at the poverty rate and the multidimensional poverty assessments by the Statistics Bureau, you see that it's at an alarming rate. And salaries have not gone up. People's pay have also not gone up. So, to what extent do you want people to survive in that instance?
Yeah.
So there has to be concerted effort, to address poverty. Otherwise, we will continue to see that happening. And when we are talking about poverty, it also means that in rural communities and in some border communities, those places are left out. State presence is not there. I think one of the colleagues was also mentioning about how non-state actors are now governing some areas. So when you have those incidences, insecurity then is justified as a way that communities and affected people feel like they are now taking back governance in their hands by every means.
It's a really sad situation here. From what a lot of people can see, it doesn't seem like much will be different. It seems like we're back at business as usual. There's not been any change in the way that things are being done. There's not been any change in the body language of the presidency or the executive. There's not been any change in the budgeting, for security either. There's not been any redirection of funds with security. So almost nothing is different. So, I don't think anybody's expecting that the results would be different either. But we'll see. Christian, thank you very much for stopping by. Looking forward to speaking with you again.
Thank you. Thank you for everything.
Have a great day ahead. All right, and we, of course, are slowly getting down to the end of, actually, we've gotten to the end of Breakfast Central for today. We, of course, will be sharing with you what comes up much later today on News Central Television. And, of course, saying our goodbyes in a bit. Yes, 10 a.m. this morning, it is Jasiri time. The fantastic ladies will be on screen. 12 p.m. West African time, News Central now comes your way. And, of course, we have one slot coming your way at 5 p.m. West African time. This is where we say goodbye. Thank you very much for joining us Tuesday morning's edition of Breakfast Central. We'll be back here again tomorrow morning. I am Osaogie Ogbon.
And as we wrap up the show, we'd like to say happy married life to Davido and Chioma. The online viewers will be a part of the wedding. And also just to say a happy married life to my friends, Larry Waju and his beautiful bride. Wish you a very, very happy life together. Until come your way again, see you tomorrow. My name is Olive Emodi.